choose a theme for our interview, and mine, I chose more so modern martyrology and the development over time. So, in current times and the historical past of martyrdom, there's been controversy surrounding the nature of it. So, historically, do you think the nature of martyrdom was rooted in religion or politics? So, in the old times of the church.
Oh, interesting question. Historically, we've always thought of martyrdom as dying for one's faith. But when you ask a question about way back, I'm thinking of like the martyrs. We would say Christian martyrs that are thrown into the lions in the Colosseum, and sort of the first martyrs that we know of that we would call people martyrs. If you go back to Christ, you say two modes of thought about why Christ was killed. One is because he opened up and said, "I'm a continuation of the Old Testament." It continues on into he would never have called himself the Messiah, but it kind of opened it up and just didn't say it was just about then and they're waiting for a Messiah in the future. And then there's the people that say it was politically motivated and to get rid of him. It's probably a combination. I think that mostly it's people die for their faith, but that doesn't mean the politics don't enter it into somewhere. You sort of look at a modern thing with Biden and bishops that don't want to give him communion because he's pro-choice, and bishops that say it's not our concern. Like, we don't take people's political views into consideration when we give out the Eucharist. So you could say that could be religion tinged with politics also. So I think mostly I think about martyrdom personally as someone dying for their faith, that they came to teach people about Christ. Or for Christian martyrs, it's mostly been because they've been about teaching the Christian faith to people that are non-Christians and then being killed because of it. So it's kind of often it's somehow some kind of mixture. I'm not saying it's equal mixture, but somehow kind of mixture of both.
Yeah. Next question is, there's a famous quote we learned about stating, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. What are your thoughts on this in terms of the development of modern day martyrdom?
Well, I'm just going to give you one example. Archbishop Romero was, I think, to move up the ladder in a place like El Salvador of a secular government ladder and all, somehow you're cooperative with the people in power. And so I think that, I don't know that they had to not approve him being the archbishop, but he played ball with them when he became the Archbishop of El Salvador. And then he was probably caught a little bit in the middle, but frankly, I'm not sure how much, as people rise in the church, you have less time to be with the people who you're governing,
mm-hmm.
Because you're doing all these issues and all. So I'm not sure how much cardinals and all really intermix with the people who are in their archdiocese and diocese and the people that they're over, because all of a sudden their issues are more institutional versus individual. So he was probably caught in the balance a little bit between the two, but he was mostly cooperating with the government and the military. And he had this Jesuit, his best friend was a Rutilio Grande, this Jesuit who was a man of the people. He was with the people, and he got assassinated because he spoke out against the government. And it's almost like when the apostles of Christ were up in the upper room and the Holy Spirit came down as Pentecost, and whatever the Holy Spirit did to there were these afraid men, their rabbi, their teacher was killed, and they're petrified because, people are after them. And then we had the coming down of the Holy Spirit, and whatever it did, tongues of flames, and whatever it did to them, it was transformational. And then they went out and spread the word of Jesus. So it was almost like something like that happened to Romero, because he changed, maybe not overnight, but fairly overnight, and began speaking out against the government and not cooperating and speaking out for the people, and he had a pretty good idea that he would be killed, and right here you can see those little lines.
Mm-hmm.
Each one says, "I will rise again in my people." So it's kind of like, maybe my voice won't be squelched out, but I will rise again will be squelched out, but I will rise again in my people. He is vastly more globally known now and more a symbol of martyrdom and Catholicism and being a grassroots type of archbishop when you're actually getting to know the people. He's much more famous than he probably ever would have been. He's much more celebrated and illuminous because he died fighting for the people and speaking out against the government that was repressing them than he ever would have been if he just lived out his life.
So, as a religious leader here at Loyola, do you have a favorite modern day martyr that you think students can admire and learn from by serving their life?
He is my person, Archbishop Oscar Romero. Yeah. That's my guy. That's why I have him here. Mm-hmm. He's inspirational to me. I went to El Salvador twice. His face is everywhere in El Salvador. And when that happened, it was a global thing, because it was an assassination.
Yeah. No, I definitely remember learning about him in grade school when I was younger. He was one figure that they made sure we knew.
He's my guy.
For class last night, we read an article discussing the events of the Columbine shooting in 1999 and how afterwards Christian teenagers that survived had a desire for martyrdom paired with a fear of being a bad Christian because they didn't die for their faith like those victims. Do you think it's important for people today to be willing to die for their faith, values, or any other beliefs?
Everything changed in high schools with Columbine because all of a sudden you said there could be shooters in your school. I believe that when there's killings like this or dying, survivors go through a whole guilt thing like, why did I survive when these other people were killed? I was in the same situation. Why did I get out and my coworkers didn't? It's kind of hard to say you would die for your faith. It kind of depends what situation you're in. I don't think anybody wants to die I don't think many people want to die. They knew that they're going to die, but to say, but to be willing to die for their faith is like a big thing because you know that if you say one word the other way, you could be saved, you could not die. So I think that's a really tough personal decision for people to make. Yes, it sounds ideal and it would be great if people would do that. I don't think many people put in that position in our country, that we know, but I think it's ideal. I don't know, I haven't thought about that kind of thing before. Nobody wants to think if they have a faith that they believe in that they're going to give it up or deny it. Peter denied Jesus because someone said, I think I saw you with him. And he got scared. First Jesus said, you're going to deny me. And he said, no, I would never do that. Then he actually does it. Then he has the remorse, of course, afterwards. So we're human. Till you're in that situation, I don't think people really know.
We also learned about 3 Latin phrases that go hand in hand with martyrdom. In English, they are hatred of the faith, hatred of love, and hatred of justice. Which do you find is more prevalent in more modern martyrs, or is it a combination of each one?
I would say more modern martyrs, whoever they may be, would be faith and justice. It's not that love's not important, but I think that, when I talk about Romero, he was killed because of his faith and because he was preaching justice, because their faith drove them. So, the Jesuits have, what's the phrase? Faith that does justice. So, because their faith drives them to fight for justice, it inspires them to fight for justice. So, love would fit in, but I really think faith and justice are the 2 big words. We do things in our lives based on the foundational values of their religion. So for Christians, it's love, it's forgiveness, it's compassion. So probably do faith and justice versus putting love in. I mean, it could be all 3, but that strikes me as the 2 that would kind of be most prominent.
After completing this project with my theme of modern martyrology and its development, I learned that over time, martyrdom has evolved in regard to religion and politics. In the times of the old church, martyrs were more so motivated by their faith. Nowadays, I think politics play a way bigger role than it used to. This project, along with the lectures and readings from class, have shown me how relevant martyrs are today. We are living in a society where martyrs still exist every day. People are standing up for political and religious beliefs, and many of them are being persecuted for it. From this, I learned that the history of martyrs has a big impact on the future. People model their lives off of these people who have sacrificed themselves for what they believe in.